Hello, welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. If you do like the programming you see here and the musicians and artists that I visit with, please be sure and hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel. Chris Rohmann is an American singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, actor, director, and writer who released a couple of solo albums during the 70s that were steeped in the folk and country genre. Chris lived in the UK for several years and recorded both of his albums there. First came The Man I Am Today, released in 1973, followed by 1978's Technicolor Dreams. The track Funky Moped from the 1978 album was covered by comedian Jasper Carrott, which made it to number 5 in the British charts. Mr. Rohmann is the former host of As Schools Match Wits, a PBS high school quiz show. He has also provided radio commentary and written as a theater critic for a couple of New England newspapers. More recently, my guest acted as director of the Hampshire Shakespeare Company in stage productions of A Midsummer's Dream in 2005 and Macbeth in 2006. And Chris is a theater director and former critic. Well, welcome, Chris.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Very welcome. Well, take us back to the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Yellow Springs, Ohio. Little, very liberal, a small town in the midst of Southern Ohio conservatism. Ohio's current governor, Mike DeWine, was born and raised in Yellow Springs and was known as, well, I think the myth is that he was the only kid in high school who wore a suit to school. But he was kind of known as the token conservative.
Oh, okay, for that area.
But it's a very liberal town. Antioch College is kind of the keystone of the place, and their student body and liberal tilt in education has kind of informed the whole town's culture. When I was in high school, the town was maybe 1/3 Black because it was a place in Southern Ohio where middle-class Black people could buy homes in nice neighborhoods. And there wasn't overt racism, although when I was a kid growing up, both of the barbershops in town would not cut Black people's hair.
Okay.
So it was an interesting time to grow up.
Yes, that would be, yes. Well, do you recall early on hearing music in the household?
Yeah, the music that we had in the household was mostly popular classics, Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture, Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, that kind of thing, and musicals. My dad was a great fan of Broadway musicals, so I grew up on Rodgers and Hart and Rodgers and Hammerstein and Cole Porter, and that was really deep in my blood when I discovered Pete Seeger.
Okay.
That's the next phrase. But when I was, they tell me that when I was 3 years old, I could sing the Mikado's song from the GNS, Gilbert and Sullivan, the Mikado, word for word, even though I didn't understand most of it.
Is that right?
So that's where the music got implanted,
Okay.
and then it expanded into folk.
Yeah, well, that's not a bad way to grow up around that kind of music.
I loved it.
Well, what was the first instrument you learned to play?
I noticed when in the intro when you said multi-instrumentalist, I am not. What I tell people is I own and operate a guitar.
Okay.
I don't consider myself a guitarist because there's so many great guitarists that I've admired and worked with. But I can play the guitar. I have a pretty good ear for arranging my songs to be played on the guitar. I don't just strum and play 3 chords, but that's about it.
That's right. Okay, I noticed on one album you played a couple of 3 instruments. That's why.
Oh well, yeah. There's one of the songs on Technicolor Dream, I play rhythm mandolin.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
chunk, chunk, chunk.
Okay.
So that's kind of a phony credit, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, how about do you recall one of the first live concerts that you went to, that you attended?
Well, the first live concert, um, the ones I the ones I remember concerts, as opposed to shows, my father would take us into Dayton, Ohio, nearby, the only nearby city of any size, to see Broadway shows on tour.
Okay.
That kind of, we saw Damn Yankees and Danny Kaye in concert and that kind of thing. But the concerts that I remember are in high school when Pete Seeger and Theodore Bikel and others came to town at the invitation of the college, and gave concerts. And when I was 14, I went to an arts camp, summer arts camp in Vermont, and I hadn't been exposed to contemporary folk music, protest song folk music at all before then, um, despite the Antioch influence. And the kids there were most of the kids there were from left-wing families in New York. There were over the 2 summers I was there, there were at least 2 or 3 children of the Hollywood 10
Oh,
who came to that camp. And so I was immediately thrust more than willingly into that world of protest folk music. And I almost literally worshiped Pete Seeger.
okay.
And
Yeah.
he was a huge influence on my subsequent musical direction.
Okay. Did you see the Complete Unknown? Did you watch
I
that?
did,
Yeah.
and I didn't expect to like it because back then when I was in college is when Dylan came up, and to my eternal shame, I didn't appreciate him. I didn't like his voice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Um, Even though I was at that time I was a great fan of old time blues singers who also had quote unquote terrible voices.
Yeah.
But it took me a long time to appreciate what a genius and what a craftsman
Yeah.
Dylan was.
Right.
And I actually thought that the Complete Unknown was great. I thought it
Yeah.
was very well done, and it helped me appreciate Dylan anew because the songs were just there, not out of the writer's context.
Right, right. I'm with you on that. With his voice, so a lot of times it's like fingernails on a chalkboard. It's still, it kind of grates on me, but I think I appreciate his music that covered by other artists with better voices,
Mhm.
more than his own originals a lot of times.
Yeah.
You know, but what a genius anyway. Any way you look at it. Well, were you in any band early on, or were you just strictly
No,
solo artist?
no, I wasn't in a band. In high school, there were two doo-wop groups, interracial, um, that I wasn't in, and I kind of don't know why not, because I had a good bass voice, which at least, especially one of those groups sorely needed.
Did they? Okay.
but I wasn't in on that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
started playing guitar, and the day after I got home from that work first summer camp, I dug out this old ukulele that was in my parents' closet and
Okay.
started playing that, and then graduated to a guitar within a couple of months.
Yeah. I've heard that doing these, so many started with the ukulele.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I definitely have heard that. Well, what took you to the UK?
After I graduated from college, I wanted to travel. I wanted to, see the world, and the so I went over to Europe and traveled around, going from work camp to work camp. Work camps, the work camp that I organization that I worked with was kind of a pacifist organization. The idea was to get people from different countries to work together and get to know each other so they wouldn't fight. It was founded right after the First World War. And so I went around and sort of paid my way at £1 a week, uh,
Wow.
hitchhiking between
Wow.
places first in England, Scotland, France, um, Austria, Berlin, and then the second year that I was in England to the Soviet Union, which was fascinating. But so that's what took me to England. And then in the winter, the work camps closed down, and so I went on visitors' visas to England and got involved in the folk scene and enjoyed the folk clubs, and then started doing floor spots in the folk clubs, and then started getting hired to do gigs in the folk clubs, and that's
Yeah.
what started it.
Yeah. Around what year was that?
That was, well, I graduated college in '64, and I started singing in the folk clubs to 60. I went to England in '65, so late '65.
Okay.
Um, and then I stayed there until '67
Okay.
when my draft status caught up with me.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I had a student deferment all this time, but way back when I was 18, I applied on the registration questionnaire to be a conscientious objector. And so I came back to fight my 1A classification. And but in the meantime, in England, I had teamed up with a guy called Harvey Andrews.
Yes, that was my next question. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah,
How did
who
you guys meet?
I was singing at a folk club and he accosted me.
Yeah.
And
Did he?
the,
Okay.
the subtext of his question was, "I need an accompanist."
Oh, is that
He
right?
said,
Okay.
would you like to team up?" Because he owned and operated a guitar too, but even I was better than him as a guitarist, and he would be the first to admit that.
Oh,
He's a brilliant songwriter,
yes.
um, and so we became a duo and wrote a few songs together, but mostly did a set of each other's songs. And then when I got my draft notice, I decided I didn't want to be a draft dodger and went home. And he proceeded to become quite a big deal on the folk scene and
Yeah.
only recently retired.
Right. I reached out to Harvey. It's been a while now, and we never got together. We corresponded a little
Uh-huh.
bit, but nothing ever came of it. But yeah, he's one that I did reach out to. And
Oh, okay.
well, interesting. I wanted to ask you too about did you ever cross the when you're over there the Seekers,
The
the band of
Seekers.
Seekers,
No, no,
the folk band?
yeah, no, I knew who they were. I saw them on Top of the Pops, but I never knew them. No.
Yeah, I just visited with Keith Potker, who was the founding member,
Uh-huh.
and also the New Seekers, later on. But that was an interesting interview too. But I knew it was around the same time period,
Hmm.
in the '60s over there.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you're playing some of that the folk circuit over there,
Yeah.
and yeah, you and Harvey would record and release an EP, Broadside EP #1. Yeah, in '66,
Well, if you've got a copy of it, I don't.
No, I don't. I just found that on the
Yeah,
internet.
we recorded a few songs. Really, I remember a really terrible recording
Was it?
with a couple of each of our songs, and then I think a couple of the parodies that we wrote.
You
Um,
did a cover of Phil Ox, I Ain't Marching Anymore.
yeah, yeah.
And
And when in recent years, when I've gone back to visit, and Harvey's been doing a gig, and I've shown up, we do that song.
okay, okay, that's one of my favorites. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Well, what did you do afterwards? After that, you were
Well,
still
I,
playing on the circuit.
I came back in the spring of '67, and I was waiting to be drafted because they turned down all my appeals for CO. Um, and I was sitting at home in Ohio, and my college roommate, Steve Wong, called me up and said, "Come to New York. I'm writing an anti-draft street play with a couple of friends. Would you come and write the songs for us?" So he and I wrote all the songs for this street musical called "Brother, You're Next," in which we we had this Shamil, this this guy, this nobody who doesn't want to go to Vietnam and tries everything he can to get out, but then he goes and he's kind of forced into killing his first peasant, and then he grows to like it and becomes a stone cold killer. And then at the end, we sing to the audience, "Is this who you're going to be, or you're going to refuse?" Basically, is what we did, and it was amazing. It was a great experience. And then we were still doing that um, on and off when Martin Luther King was assassinated in early '68. And most of the people in the street theater that we were working with were students at the NYU School of the Arts, now called the Tisch School. And the Black kids in the school, there was obviously there was an all school meeting um, in the wake of the assassination, and all the students were there, and the Black kids stood up and said, "Okay, we've had it. We are not going to work with white people. We're going to do theater by and for and with Black people. Um, goodbye." I mean, they didn't leave the school, but and this kid who had never been political at all before, a guy called Arnold Middleman, stood up and said, "Absolutely right. We have got to do theater for white people about racism." And so the New York Free Theater was founded, and I was hired to write the songs, and we did that for several years.
Imagine you enjoyed that work.
Sorry?
I said, I imagine you enjoyed that work. Yes.
Yeah, it was great. It was a street theater, but because of the times, we were very well funded by liberal foundations. And Joseph Papp of the New York Free of the Public Theater was on our board. Mayor Lindsay came to see one of our shows. So, for a street theater, we were a big deal.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, those are some fond memories, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and to have that kind of political impact as well.
Mm-hmm.
The time and have the support, like you said. The back. Yeah. Wow. Well, how long had you been writing the songs for what would be your first solo album?
My first album, The Man I Am Today, is made up of several songs that I wrote for the street theater.
Okay.
The title song, The Man I Am Today, and maybe one or two others were from the score I wrote for a musical that we were commissioned to write by Universal Pictures.
Oh,
Their idea was that we were going to write this musical, and it was going to be the next Hair. And it was going to open off Broadway and then go to Broadway and be a big hit. Um, and so I wrote the songs, and the rest of the book was written sort of in committee by the other people in the theater. And for some reason, I had little or nothing to do with that. And basically, it was terrible.
no, was it?
But
Well,
but it was the songs got nice reviews from the film people, but they said we pass.
okay.
But I had the songs,
Okay. Okay.
and so there were several songs on that album that I wrote for that show, and then others that I wrote in the same period.
Yeah.
All the songs on my first album are from the late '60s, early '70s.
Okay. Okay. Well, how were you signed to RCA?
Um, After the theater had been going for some years, the it it kind of it didn't fall apart, but people started doing other things. There was a theater group that developed out of our group with other people, and so we all started doing various things. And I was playing around the city a little bit, um, and I was decided to go back to England and see what was up. And so I did, and I ran into or contacted an old friend from the folk scene who I'd known back then, a guy called John Pierce, who introduced me to his publisher, EMI, who recorded a demo and played it around, and RCA offered a deal. So I went back to New York, packed my bags, and moved to England, and was there for 10 years.
Yeah, yeah. There's some big name folkies on the album.
Yeah.
Were those the guys that you met playing on the circuit? A lot of those artists?
No, not really. They were people that John knew, Dave Maddox and Dave Pegg,
Yes.
from Fairport Convention, and other people who um, I don't. There were a lot of people who sang on the song with the big chorus called "Sing," who were friends of mine, basically. But the others were session musicians who I didn't know, or friends of John,
Yeah.
John produced the album after essentially getting me the deal.
Okay, okay. Well, where was the album recorded?
It was recorded at Sound Techniques studio in South London. A
Okay.
guy called Jerry Boys was the owner and operator and an engineer. Great guy. I, of course, knew nothing about production.
Okay. How
Yeah.
was that process, the recording
I'll
process?
go back a little. This is an interesting story.
Okay.
Um, I hope. uh, when I was in New York working with the Free Theater, as I said, a lot of the people who we were working with came out of the NYU School of the Arts, and Paul Simon was a friend of the head of the school.
Okay. Okay.
And he apparently said to this guy, I'd be interested in running a songwriting class. Do you think you could give me a room to work in and space to audition people? And the guy said, duh, yeah.
Right.
Um, and so it might have been only students at the school who were eligible, but I got wind of it and got permission to audition.
Oh,
So I sang him a couple of songs, and he said, I'll never forget this. He said, well, I can't teach you anything about songwriting. You know how to write a song. But at the end of the session, I'm going to go into the studio with the class and let them record a song just to see how the beginnings of how a record is produced, how that works. And you would be welcome to come along to that. And so I said, sure. And could I drop in on a couple of the class sessions? And he said, sure. So I did. And and so it was really interesting
oh, I was
being
going to say,
being
glad
in the
that you had
class.
that experience. Yes.
The only person who I know of who came out of the class and made a name for herself was Melissa Manchester,
Yeah.
who then
Okay.
had a couple of minor hits.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I sang. Uh, I did a couple of gigs in her club. Her and her husband ran a club uptown. Um, And Paul Simon is an interesting guy, very low key, very, very straight faced.
Right. Right.
Um, but he gave to the students, he gave really interesting
Yeah.
pointers. People come in, and it was a workshop. People come in, sing a song, and he and the other people in the room would comment on it.
Yeah. Another thing I find interesting doing these interviews is the common threads that I find in musicians,
Hmm.
artists. I've mentioned the Seekers earlier. he tells the story, Chris, about Paul Simon when he went to the UK. And
Hmm.
they met him and co-writing several songs with him. One of them, Red Rubber Ball, which became a big
Huh.
hit for the Circle.
For them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And how he was kind of finding himself at that time.
Hmm.
He had kind of he and Art weren't on the best terms. And then after that time, then he went back, and of course, Art and he, just it took off from there. But
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
but at that time, right, he had relocated. Wow. Well, do you recall the sessions for the first album, the recording sessions?
Um, yeah, I guess I was kind of in, in a haze of wow, this
Yeah.
is me.
Yep.
Um,
Uh,
so it was the I don't have any specific memories of those sessions. I guess the the moment that I remember is the song called Sing, the one that we then overdubbed this huge chorus of all my friends. Um, and the drummer was Jerry Conway, who
yeah.
was I don't he must have been working with a band, but he was a very successful, popular session musician. And the they were trying to get the right drum sound and accompaniment for the song. And whatever he was doing, which I don't really recall, the John Pierce, the producer, didn't like, and they kept trying different things, and finally he said, "Do you have any brushes?" And the engineer told me later, he said, "Jerry is not going to have brushes in his kit because he was a big drum sound guy." And that's what the song needed. It needed the big drum sound. And I don't know why John wanted to put brushes on it, but it dragged down the track terribly, I'm afraid.
Oh, okay.
So that
Okay.
was so
I'll
that
have to go back to,
that's the moment
yeah.
I kind of this still kind of haunts me.
Okay. I'll have to go back and listen to that again with that, note what you're
Yeah.
talking about there. Well, you have a nice, soothing voice, and I'm sure you've been told this before, but it reminds me at least of Jim Croce. Uh,
No, thank you.
yeah, yeah, which is one of my all-time
Yeah. Yeah, me
favorite
too.
singers. Yes, yes, love all his material. But I wanted to mention a few of my favorites from the album and get your recollections if you can.
Okay, sure, sure.
uh,
Yes.
Biography is a really nice one. Yeah.
Yeah. When the album was reviewed in Melody Maker, it was not an enthusiastic review. Um, the critic got the impression that the whole album was autobiographical, like so many first albums are.
Yeah.
Uh, and because one of the first song on the album is called the Chair Song, and I
Yes.
wrote that for my grandfather, who made me a tiny little kid-sized chair when I was a kid. So that's the what the song is about. And there's a picture of him on the back cover and of me sitting on a replica of the chair. Uh, and so he jumped to conclusions from that. Biography is not my biography. It's a song that I wrote for the show, for the musical that we wrote for Universal Pictures. So that's where it came from. It's about that character, but it's not me.
It's not you. It's not you.
Mm.
Not
Yeah.
autobiography.
And in fact, that the song in the show um, goes somewhere else than it does as a complete song. It's the beginning of almost the finale. So it goes from like the second or third verse in the song. My song ends with this guy um, um, complaining that his wife has left him because he doesn't uh, know how to love really. He's never learned how to be intimate. Um, and in the show, that was quite different. That the idea behind the song in the show was that he had built up this shell and needed to break out of it in order to really connect with the people who were on his side. And so then it goes into a whole nother piece of music. So I wrote that last verse about him ending up alone uh, for to make it into a song for the album. And it's, I don't know if you noticed this, but um, it occurred to me much later that it's basically the same song as Harry Chapin's Cats in the Cradle,
Oh,
about
okay. Oh,
his father
yeah.
never really paying attention to him.
Yes. Yes. The theme in both of those. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Right. Oh, that's such a sad song. Yeah. It's
yeah.
hard. It's hard for me to listen to that one, Cats in the Cradle, because it does in my own life. It's like I've done some of those things with my own son. And it's like,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
you want, can I go back and do that again? Do it over? you know.
Well,
Yeah. 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 We all have those kind of, yeah, times.
yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, the next track is probably my favorite on the album. Uh, what would it be like? A beautiful track. Beautiful.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. That was also written for the show.
Okay. All right.
And it's the love story, it's the love song that is in the head, although he sings it, of the hero, um, because he's a cop, and the conflict in the show is between the cops and the local Puerto Rican, not gang, but um, protest movement, um, because they're being hassled on the street, that kind of thing. But he falls in love with the leader of that group. Um, and so he's fantasizing about what would it be like to tell you how I feel. Um, Interesting thing about that song is that I brought, just after I wrote it, when I was working on the score for the show, I brought it into Paul Simon's songwriting class and said, can I sing you my latest song? And so he said, sure, and I sang it. And at the end, he said, well, I don't know, it's a little too sweet for me.
Really.
And the thought that I had but did not say
Uh-huh.
was, "Sweet for you. You have a song called Bridge Over Troubled Water that's number one on
Right.
the hit parade right now. What are you talking
Yeah.
about?"
It said
But I said,
the
"Okay."
coffee calling
And
the kettle black. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah,
then
that's right.
sitting right behind him
Yeah.
was Melissa Manchester, who was shaking her head no and putting her thumb up, saying she liked the song anyway.
Yeah. Right, right. Yeah, it's funny. I think some artists don't hear that in their own compositions. They may hear that
Mhm.
in another,
Yeah.
but they don't hear it
Yeah.
in their. Yeah, yeah. That's.
I will allow that Bridge Over Troubled Water is a better song.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, it's all your point of view. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I like what you
I
sing about, and
appreciate that.
I like what you sing about in The Man I Am Today,
Hmm.
playing cowboys and Indians
Hmm.
and baseball cards. I was a big collector of football and baseball cards. Yeah,
Uh-huh,
grew
uh-huh.
up. Yes, I can
Yeah.
relate. I can relate. Yeah.
Well, interestingly enough, that's a song from the show, but it is autobiographical. It's
Okay.
all the things
Okay.
that I remember from my
Yeah,
youth.
I thought
And
so.
then as the song goes on, it gets into Vietnam and My Lai and JFK's assassination.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's it's all my own memories and experiences, and
Right.
I stuck it into the show, um, for the part they were writing for me.
Right.
It was
Right.
the leader of the band.
Right. I like that, transition from innocence into world affairs, like you said.
Hmm.
That
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I'm proud of that one.
yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, I remember. I don't know. There's a few years, difference here and us, but did they have the gum in the packs of the baseball cards when
Oh
you
yeah,
collected?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's why the song says, "I
yeah,
remember the
yeah,
taste of Three Musketeers candy bar and the
yeah.
smell of baseball cards."
Yes, that's right.
Because
But yeah, it did
yeah,
have that,
that's
and
right.
and I always like sometimes they were like the gum was like, sticking to the card, and
Okay.
I would end up having to like scrape it off of the try to
Mhm.
salvage the card, So yeah, I remember those kind of things. Yeah. Well, The Lion and the Deer is another fine track. I like that.
Yeah, that was not from the show.
Okay. All right. There's one. All right.
It was a wedding song that I wrote for friends. Um, and that was the animal images that I had for them.
Yes.
And we did a wedding. I performed several weddings as a minister of the Universal Life Church.
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
think you still can, send away for this certificate from this church that established itself solely so that it could ordain sectarian ministers, non-sectarian ministers. Um, so I performed that ceremony and sang the song as part of the ceremony out in the woods with the free theater people.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. What? Well, how long did you do that? Or how
Um,
many ceremonies did you?
oh, I think there might have been three or four. Um, one of them lasted only briefly. One of them they went and got officially married just in case.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, that's funny.
uh,
Yeah. With,
And
yeah.
and this couple, maybe they didn't stay together forever, but for a long time, as far as I remember, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, the next track is, I think, my second favorite off of the album, I Must Fly. And I like the tabla on that one.
Yeah, yeah, that was totally John's idea, friend of his.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know where that song came from. I don't think it came from a particular event in my life. It's about the end of a love affair where the lover has to leave for some reason. Um, the thing that I remember about that song is um, there there's a verse that goes, one evening we spoke of you spoke of leaving, we both analyzed why. It's all about thinking your way instead of feeling your way. Um, and then it goes on, and then something, something, something. Then when you told me you had to hold me, fire filled the room. And that was my way of saying it was just an explosion of feeling suddenly. And what I remember about that is I was sitting on the couch trying to figure out that lyric and kind of writhing around,
Yeah. Right.
um, trying to get that feeling into my body and then into my head. And uh, very rare that has that happened so physically in writing a song.
Yeah. Yes. Wow. Yeah. It's normally spiritually or mentally, but yeah,
Yeah.
that would be a struggle there. Well, Song of the Farmer, I like the pedal steel on that one too.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's
Um,
a edition. Yeah.
that's a song that I wrote while riding in a bus in southern France, on my way from one work camp to another, and watching the farm fields pass by and thinking about the people there and thinking about my friends from high school who were in Vietnam at that moment.
Yeah.
And that's where the song just came up. I wrote the song on the bus.
Okay. And then one final track, I believe it's the final song on the album, Happy Birthday. I like it even though it's too short. I wished it was a little longer. Yeah. Yeah.
And it goes too fast. I was
Yeah.
listening the other day,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I
the
wasn't going to
tempo is
say.
a little too fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that's a song about my grandfather who made that little chair that starts the album.
Oh, kind
And
of a full circle kind of a thing.
indeed, yeah, and it's his poem that he wrote for himself on his 80th birthday.
Oh, okay.
And so I wrote for his 90th birthday, I set that poem to music. And then
Oh,
I thought to end the album, it would be sweet to come, as you say, full circle.
yes, yes. Well,
Mm.
how old did he live to be, your
I
grand?
think he lived to be something like 96.
Oh, okay.
Where,
Wow.
you
That's
know,
a that's a long. My mother passed away last, let's see, what is this, 25? Yeah, last year, 91. Yeah.
uh-huh.
So she was had some longevity there.
Yeah, that side of my family especially is very long lasting.
Yeah.
I've told my partner that for her, I'm going to last until at least 90.
Okay, good.
Well, I'm working on it now.
Right. I was going to say, I hope you hold yourself to that. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, now I hope I'm not the first person to say this, but your picture on the album, at least to me, resembles a certain prophet. Uh,
Gee,
have you
I've
heard that?
never heard that
Oh, I was going to
before.
say, I know
I'm
you
going to have to take a look at it and see. Yeah, yes, of course.
have.
Yeah.
I knew you had. I knew you had. I
First
just,
thing I thought when I saw it
uh-huh,
was this
uh-huh.
was the same. I thought, really?
Yeah.
Well, at that particular time, as you see from the picture, and also the one on the back
Mhm.
cover, um, that's what I looked like. I
Yeah, yeah,
had a full beard and shoulder length hair.
yeah, yeah.
Mm. That the fullness of the beard didn't
Yeah,
last long, and certainly the longness of the hair.
yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, what comments did you hear about that? Do you remember after the album came out?
The comment that you just made.
Okay, okay, all right. This is a similar comment.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I thought maybe that would help sell the album a little bit then.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say that I was disappointed in John's production of
Oh,
the album.
okay,
It lacked a lot. It was too folky.
okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, I can hear that. I definitely can hear that. Well, what did you do in between the release of that album and your second from '78?
Well, I lived in North London and played the folk circuit and festivals, and toured a little bit in Europe, yearly in Holland and yearly in Northern Ireland,
Oh,
which was interesting because that was the time of the Troubles.
right,
And
right.
so I was driving to gigs um, only in the north. The agent who hired me to do that was just up in the north, um, and seeing, um, well, frankly, seeing images like we're seeing on the streets of some of our cities today,
Yeah,
soldiers in fatigues and automatic weapons,
right,
and
right.
plus bombed out storefronts with plywood over the windows and that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Scary, definitely.
Mm.
Scary
Indeed,
then, scary today. Yes,
indeed, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes, yes.
And I, well, I guess the lest we forget the the highlight in a way, the the most visible of what happened between the first album and the second album was Funky Moped,
Yeah.
um, which interestingly enough got its birth in that musical that I wrote,
Oh, did
um,
it? Okay, that came.
under the title Little Big Bike, and it was the novelty song
Yeah,
in the show. These
yeah,
two cops who fancied themselves rock and rollers
yeah,
sang this song, which was a parody combo of teenage death and heartbreak 50s song like Teen Angel, and Jan and Dean and Beach Boys uh,
yeah,
songs, those chords.
yeah.
Um, and uh, and so I wrote that song, and let me see, shortly after I got to England in '72, when I went back to take advantage of the recording contract, I met Jasper Carrott, who was at that time playing the folk circuit and running a folk agency that he called Fingamigig. And he was then and still is a comedian. So he pioneered the idea of comics in the folk clubs.
Okay.
He would because of the folk club, he would sing a couple of songs, and he knew how to play three or four chords and sing some folk songs. But then 90% of his act was hilarious comic bits. And at one point, just before he really took off, he and I did a tour together, um, in which we each did parts of our act. I sang some songs, he did some bits, and I got to know him well because I would always stay with him and his family in the Birmingham area when I was working in the Midlands. And he was my agent for a while. So most of the gigs that I got were in the Midlands. And so we would talk a lot about all kinds of things. And because of the theater work that I've done in New York, I knew a lot about comedy improv. And he was fascinated by that.
Oh, was he?
And so we did a couple of we did a couple of written sketches in the show, but then we also did an improv game where we'd ask the audience for the first line and the last line of a sketch, and we'd improvise a sketch that began with that line and ended with that line. And from that, I developed a thing that I did a lot in the clubs, which was the songwriting game, which is the same thing, but I would write a song based on the audience giving a first line and a last line. But also in that tour that we did our own version of that song that I'd written for the show. And it was his idea to say, "Little Big Bike doesn't quite work. How about Funky Moped?"
Okay.
And
All
I
right.
thought, yeah, sure,
Yep.
great.
Yep.
So we did it as Funky Moped. And very shortly after that, Jasper got a recording contract to make mainly LPs of his acts, like Lenny Bruce and uh, Mike Nichols and Elaine May were releasing over here. But they said because they were it was a DJM Records, it was a pop label basically. They needed a single, and he said, "Well, I don't know. How about Funky Moped?" So we recorded the A side of this single, Funky Moped, with one of Jasper's oldest friends way back from childhood was Bev Bevan, who was the drummer in
Oh,
the
ELO.
Electric Orchestra.
Right. Yes.
And so the recording session was produced by Jeff Lynne, who played the electric guitar, and Bev played the drums. And there might have been another member of ELO who was in on it. I don't recall.
Yeah.
And then I and a couple of other guys that we knew did the backing vocals. Go Funky Moped.
Yeah.
And it became, as you mentioned, a big hit.
Yeah.
But as Jasper keeps pointing out, he said, rolling his eyes, it was not a hit because of Funky Moped. It was a hit because of the B-side, which was a scurrilous, semi-obscene parody of a very popular children's TV show called Magic Roundabout.
Oh.
And so people on the jukeboxes, Funky Moped was installed on jukeboxes, and people started playing the B-side on the jukebox, and it became very popular, and people passing it here, play Magic Roundabout, play Magic Roundabout, and so it suddenly appeared with the title of the A side, Funky Moped, on the pop charts.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who I guess still does work for the BBC, Paul Gambaccini, who is the American DJ on BBC Radio. And I knew him because a friend and I a friend of mine and I had um, had started a Sunday pickup softball game in Regent's Park, and Paul was one of the players.
Yeah.
And so one Sunday he came up to me, and because he saw my name on the label, he said, "Is that you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "What is it?" because Jasper sang it in this thick Birmingham accent, as if he was some moped yobbo.
Yeah.
And Paul said, um, most of we get all of the records in the office,
Yeah.
and all of us each get one, right?
Yeah.
And so, and we listened to at least a few seconds, and then we all threw them away.
Oh, did
Except
you?
there's this one guy who keeps everything. So we all, when we saw the name on the chart, um, we all piled into his office, and he found it and played it, and they couldn't make head or tail of what it was, because it just seemed like some strange Birmingham fellow recording a song in his garage that happened to have a great backing track.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's the story of Funky Moped. But because it was the hit, officially the hit, everybody knows it. Everybody in England of that generation knows it. For a while, I was getting songwriting royalties, not only for sales and plays of the song, which is still being recycled, um, but also from cell phone downloads. People would put Funky Moped at the first few bars on their phone. I think that was a passing fad, because I'm not getting so many anymore.
You're not anymore.
But,
It's fading. Yeah.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the Funky Moped story, and that's what I was doing for part of the time until
Okay.
the second
Well,
album.
I didn't realize that. Jeff Lynne and Bev Bevan on backing.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. I'm going to go back and listen to that again and with my ELO ears. Yeah.
yeah, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of those cases, and this has happened so much throughout history, is DJs will flip over and play the B-side
Hmm.
like that. Kind of backfired in a sense in that case. But
Yeah, well, it's because the Magic Roundabout track was not allowed to be played on the BBC because it was
right,
so-called obscene.
right.
I think I think at one point one of the characters says "piss off." Back in the
Yeah.
early 70s, that was too much.
Yes, yes. That would get you banned right away. Yes, yes. Well, the album would appear on Technicolor Dreams too, as well, uh, and 1978. And you would produce that album.
Yeah, RCA did not renew my contract because the album never went anywhere.
Yeah.
So, and I was getting most of my record sales from carrying them around to my gigs and selling them from the floor, as everybody who was doing the folk scene then was doing. They would record their own albums and take all of the proceeds. So I recorded Technicolor Dreams on my own bat. Yeah.
Yeah. Where did you record the album?
Recorded it as a studio called Hallmark Studios. A guy named Steve, I think, Hall. Excellent studio. Small, not one of these. This was still in tape days, of course, but it was. He didn't have 32 track deck. Maybe he didn't even have in those days. He didn't even have a 16 track deck. So it was recorded um, on 4 tracks, just like the Beatles, just
Yeah.
like Sgt. Pepper. It's amazing
Yeah.
what a really good engineer can get out of 4 tracks with overdubbing, timing the tracks that go down in the right order. And so
Yeah.
it sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, not as good as Sgt. Pepper.
If you have a good engineer, that's
Yeah.
a big plus for you, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and in those days, he was really cheap, so I could afford to do it. And all of the accompanying, all of the backing is done by friends of mine from the folk scene for the most part. Yeah.
One artist I see on that played on the album, Andrew Cronshaw,
Hmm.
who I interviewed last year, July of last year.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you don't have to scroll. You didn't see that, did you? You didn't see my interview
I
with Andrew.
didn't know. I'll look for it.
Well,
Yeah.
what is so I can save you some time so you don't have to scroll. I'll just send you the link, so
Okay,
you
great.
can
Thank you.
pull it right
Yeah.
up. Yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I enjoyed
Um,
that. I enjoyed that with him and all of his instruments that he's played and everything.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I coulda, shoulda, woulda
yeah.
used him more,
Yeah.
but on that album he played concertina on one of
Yes,
the songs.
yes, yes. A lot of exotic instruments he's played. Yeah. Were you happy with the end product, this album?
I was, yeah, I still am.
Yeah, yeah,
For what it was, I thought it was pretty good.
yeah. Well, what was the Edinburgh Festival Fringe?
Well, the Edinburgh Festival is a long-standing um, arts festival up in Scotland that in the 50s, I think, started developing what they called a fringe, which was little shows in in little side venues, church basements, and various informal performance areas. And it grew and grew and grew in popularity until now it's just enormous. Thousands of acts. I don't know how they fit in, but um, a couple of friends of mine and I were doing, a couple of friends of mine were doing an act on the Fringe one year, and I went up and saw them um, do it, and I thought, this is really interesting. Maybe I could do something like this. But I realized that I couldn't just sit there on a stool and play my guitar because even then there was so much competition.
Yeah.
Or what shows do you want to go and see? Um, so I developed what was then called a multimedia show, which meant I had my songs and illustrated each one with a set of slides. I had what the state of the art in 1979, um, uh, four slide projectors on a
Did
big
you?
wide screen.
Uh-huh.
And so various songs were illustrated by songs, but by pictures that were the same kind of feel as the song. So one of the songs was illustrated with all Norman Rockwell images, and another with comic book images. Uh, and so I went and did that in a church basement and got handfuls of people in to to see the show. But I got two reviews in in the Scotsman, the Edinburgh paper, and the Glasgow Herald, which were raves. And so the Scotsman gives out what's called the Fringe First Award each year to a handful of the acts that they've reviewed. And so I got one. I was as they say in England, gobsmacked.
Gobsmacked. I like that.
But
Yeah.
but on the strength of that, I went back to Edinburgh 2 more years because that's the way you get the audience. The audience saying, "Well, what should we see? Oh, Fringe First must be good."
Yeah.
So
Right.
I got a venue right on the high street, um, and so lots of foot traffic, but also lots of intentional. Let's go and see that show because it has to be good. And I did that for 2 years and excuse me, added a children's show with slide illustrations out of an Italian children's book about the Wild West. It was strange and weird, but great fun.
That almost sounds like a Ennio Morricone, those Italian westerns, they
Almost, except it's really charming little cartoons.
right for children.
Yeah.
Well, why the move back to the States?
Um, Well, partly because I was doing the multimedia show and I couldn't really do it apart from the fringe because it takes a whole stage and a spotlight, so that I have to be seen because I'm sitting off to the side of the screen with my guitar playing along with the backing tracks from my album, which and I recorded basically a whole nother album, for more backing tracks the second year I went back. So I would sing along with the backing tracks and play guitar. Uh, but I needed to be lit separately from the screen so they could see the pictures on the screen. And the only places that could do it over there were art centers, and I didn't have a big enough following to fill an art center or a university hall or something. So I came back experimentally. I figured that I didn't want to live in England forever, probably, but I came back to see if that was true, if I wanted to stay here or wanted to go back. And um, started getting gigs at mostly at colleges and prep schools because um, they had a theater and they had a student activities budget. So I did that for a while and slowly just let it go because the audiences kept getting younger and younger. Oh
Yeah.
no, the other way around maybe, but yes. Uh, and and then got slipped back into theater, uh,
Okay.
via critic writing criticism and then directing.
Okay. Okay. So that's how you got into
So
that. Well,
yeah,
we'll talk. When did you become the host of As Schools Match Wits?
it's funny because my Wikipedia entry starts with that because it was put up by the people on the TV show. I
Oh,
had
when did they
nothing to
do
do with it, so it's a very limited, um,
it?
but
I wondered why that
also
was first. I wondered.
kind of wonky
I
uh,
wondered. Yeah.
emphasis
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
that entry. Um, As Schools Match Wits is When Schools Match Wits
Yeah.
is a local Western Mass uh, area um, quiz show based on Jeopardy, basically,
Okay.
where teams of four high school students uh, compete against each other in general knowledge questions. Uh, they don't have to put it in the form of a question, but the format is the same. It's got the board with the various categories and all that. Um, and it was dropped by the local station that it had been on forever and picked up by the local PBS station. And in the process, they lost their host because the host was a staff member of the local commercial station. So they put out a call for a new host. And I heard about it and thought that would be interesting and fun. I'll have a go. And so I showed up and chatted with this. It had some high school students there as dummies, um,
Yeah.
as guinea pigs. And so I read from the teleprompter and asked them questions and things. And I got the job. And I think it was because most of the other people who auditioned were actors. And so they were a bit actorly. But also at the same time, I was directing shows at the local um, performing arts charter school, high school.
Oh.
And that happened just through almost a coincidence, but I started directing there. And I found out that I really liked teenagers. I really enjoyed working with the teenagers. So when I got to the audition, I wasn't intimidated
Yeah.
by the whole setup.
Yeah.
And so apparently I was pretty relaxed when I was doing the audition, and they hired me.
Yeah.
Um,
How long did you do that for?
that was for a couple of seasons. It was a
Okay.
couple of
Okay.
seasons,
Okay.
and then there was a just difference of opinion, and I was kind of done with it already. So
Okay. Well, you mentioned performing arts school. Was that the Pioneer Valley Performing Arts School?
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I was originally invited to teach a class on criticism because I started writing for the Valley Advocate in 1986 and retired my column, quote unquote, 2 years ago. So that
Oh,
was
is that
a
right?
long time, long
Oh,
stretch.
yes.
Uh, but but I was working teaching at PBPA. I did a screenwriting class, and then I was invited to fill one of the show slots in the performance season, and I did it, and I loved it. It was the most fun I'd ever had because it was creative and communal, working with other people on creating something. I'd been working alone for almost all of my career, writing songs, performing as a solo musician, going to theater, and then coming home and writing a review alone. And so it was wonderful. I happened to be in a play at the same time.
Oh,
I was recruited to be in the Fantastics by a friend who was directing it for a community theater. And so I was doing the two things at the same time, and I loved both, but I realized that I liked directing more than acting. So I pursued that and did 3 shows, as you mentioned, with Hampshire Shakespeare Company, which is a local Shakespeare dedicated show. I wasn't I wasn't the president of it, but I was very active in it for a few years.
yeah, you were a director.
I directed 3 or 4 shows.
Okay, okay, yeah, stage productions. Yes, for
Yeah.
those, yeah. How was that? Did you enjoy it?
It going way back. I I grew up in this college town, and every summer there was a professional Shakespeare festival from the time I was, I don't know, 8 until 14, something like that. And they did the entire Shakespearean canon in 7 seasons, maybe even less.
Okay.
And I played all the kids' parts. Um, my brother's best friend was John Lithgow,
Oh, is that
the
right?
actor,
Is
because
that right?
his father founded the festival.
Uh-huh.
But Johnny wasn't interested in acting. He was interested in art. So
Uh-huh.
he hung out with my brother, and they would write and produce comic strips that John would illustrate. And John is still an illustrator. He does a lot of he's published several books about our current president, Dumpty.
Yeah.
Um, and and he's illustrated them.
Yeah.
So I played all the kids' parts that he
Oh,
didn't.
he didn't. Okay.
um, and so I was really steeped in Shakespeare and in theater. Uh, and so when I got the opportunity to direct Shakespeare, I said, sure, great.
Yeah. Are they still doing a Shakespeare in the Park all over or in different cities? Do you know if that's still active?
There are various Shakespeare festivals. The most famous, of course, is in New York, the Free Shakespeare in the Park that the Public Theater does. But there are outdoor Shakespeare festivals all over the place still.
Yeah.
No longer in my area, but Oregon has a great one. Regent's Park in London has an annual Shakespeare in the Park.
Oh, well, they better watch out in Oregon. They'll send ice out there, and
Uh, Unfortunately, I wouldn't be surprised.
I know you messaged me not long ago, said that you were staging a play. You were involved with
Yeah, there's a new local company called Valley Players that a guy who was in my Hampshire Shakespeare production of As You Like It founded. He was doing grad work at UMass and then went down to Virginia and got a university job, and then came back to live here when he was able to do that job online, and founded his third community theater
Oh,
here.
is that right?
First in Salem, Massachusetts, his hometown, and then down in Virginia. And I kind of helped getting him started because I knew a lot of people around. First thing he did was a not an open mic, but an afternoon session of little monologues and short scenes from local actors. I helped him recruit a lot of those actors, and so we've been in touch ever since. And he invited me to direct his latest, well, the upcoming production now in December, which is It's a Wonderful Life,
Oh,
the old time radio version. It's a
oh,
very popular thing going around theaters these days, where you set up a situation that's like an old time radio studio back in the 40s or the 30s. And so the actors are holding the script and talking into microphones, and off to the side, there's a Foley table with this guy doing live homemade sound effects. And the
oh, what? Yeah,
classic Foley table sound effect
yes, yes.
is the sound of feet walking on crunching snow, which you do by pounding your fist on cornflakes.
Yes, I was going to say cornflakes.
Yeah. And so it's great fun for an audience, and it's great fun for actors to do, and they don't have to memorize lines because they're
Right.
reading from scripts. And so we're doing a version of that uh, in December. So we've just gotten started working on that a little bit.
That sounds really interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I like that going back to tradition, traditional, like you said, radio and going back to
Mhm.
how it was originally done. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Bringing that back.
War of the Worlds is the other really popular one
Oh
that
yes, yes.
that they
Oh,
do,
oh yes.
based on that famous broadcast, of course.
Oh, yeah. All right, then, Chris. Is anything in closing that you'd like to that maybe we forgot to mention, or you'd like to bring up, or
Hmm.
uh,
Um, it's been interesting talking to you about my biography
yes,
and
yes.
thinking back over so much that I've done, and how fortunate I've been to be able to do, for the most part, exactly what I want to be doing, and getting away with it, and living low on the hog, but still scraping out an
Hello,
existence.
hello. I like
Um,
that. Hello.
so
Yeah.
yeah, and so thanks for allowing me to remember that. Appreciate it.
All righty then. Stay in touch. Anything
Yeah,
that you'd like to send me, any updates, anything that's going on with you, that's
yeah.
fine.
Well, the thing that I neglected to say is that
Oh,
there's a third album
okay, there you go. There you go.
the based on the tracks that I recorded extra for the Edinburgh Festival. And so some years ago now, I went back into the studio and got those tracks remixed and released. I don't want to say released really because I never made much of it. I didn't put it on Apple Tunes or whatever the hell it's called. Um, but I have CDs, and
Okay.
I will send you one.
Oh, that would be most welcome. I would appreciate that. All right, Chris, it's been very enjoyable, and I want to thank you again. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Cheers.